Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to The Money Factor. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Today we're going to be talking about something that's a little more fun than just hard work. Even though money is maybe the root of why we are doing what we do much of the day, we also need to have a little balance in our life. And to talk about that, we have a guest today, Thomas Denham from Careers in Transition. I want to welcome you back to our show.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Thank you. What's this all about, this work-life balance?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I think in the internet age, this is the defining issue. It's not about work. It's not about our personal lives. It's how we balance them. And 20 years ago, when I graduated from college, we weren't really talking about work-life balance issues. But now, in this internet age, where everything is faster, everything's on demand, both parents are working, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot to balance, and there's not a lot of time to do it. And
I think you've underlined that also with some numbers. It's one thing sometimes we think things are worse because we don't remember, and we have a selective memory. Mm-hmm. But you had some statistics, I think.
I can share with you.
Yeah,
sure.
Do that. Show us why it's worse now.
We want to talk about where things are, but then during the show we want to give some solutions and some strategies
Absolutely.
and tips that can help. Average American annually spends 65 days watching TV. That's the Census Bureau, 65 days.
That's a lot.
Americans spend more time planning their summer vacations than they do spend planning their careers.
Now that doesn't sound good.
That's not good. American workers put in the longest hours, 2,000, on the job of any industrialized nations, and that's the International Labor Office.
And I think I saw where the average work week has increased by 5 to 6 hours in the last, 6-10 years? You're going to go there.
I'm going to go there. In the next 25 years, commuters will spend 65% more time in gridlock. Americans spend more time commuting, 100+ hours, than they spend on vacation, 80 hours. That's the Census Bureau.
And traffic never gets better.
Traffic is not getting better, for sure. 80% of families are dual career couples.
And that's a huge change over the past, 40 years?
Yeah, that's the Beaver Cleaver model is going
rare.
by the wayside. That's exactly right. 60+% of the workforce are women. Americans have a negative savings rate, negative 1.6%.
We're famous in the world for that.
Vacation deprivation. 33% of Americans end up foregoing vacation days because they're too busy at work. Yet, 36% have reported that they feel better about their jobs and more productive after vacation. That came from Expedia.com, 2007. 38% of Americans reported regularly working more than 40 hours per week, again from Expedia. So those are some of the trends that we're facing. And I did want to mention a couple rules before we go any further in the show. A couple work-life balance rules. Rule number 1, people who have work-life balance don't always have work-life balance.
Now you're gonna explain that now or later?
Okay, I can tell you that now. Work-life balance ranges on a scale of 1 to 10. If 10 was perfect work-life balance and 1 would be absolute chaos, we're always vacillating within that continuum. So for me today, I'm having about a 9 today. I feel very centered, very work-life balance. I'm going to pick up my daughter at the bus stop today. I feel I was very productive. I have plans for the weekend. Work is going well. Got new clients, that kind of thing. So I'm feeling a 9. There are other days when I'm about a 2.
So even somebody who studies this
and pontificates about it
still has to work at it.
Yeah,
is that
constantly.
The message?
Yes, that is the message. The message is that from the minute I wake up in the morning, I'm constantly thinking about how can I make this day a work-life balance day. And I know I have triggers internally that tell me, whoa, you're getting out of balance. And I'll give you some ways of how we can.
Right. I think
alert
we wanna do
ourselves
that.
to those kinds of things. Rule number 2, techniques that work for some don't always work for others. I'm a single parent. I have a daughter. The techniques that I might use might not be suitable for somebody who has 2 kids and is in nuclear family, or has 5 kids, or somebody that
Or no kids.
or no kids, or somebody that works an hour away from work.
And maybe ages. Student, somebody who's retired, they've got the
Right.
children, but
That's right.
Yep.
Somebody may work in the Berkshires and come to Albany to commute.
Okay.
That would be
so a
certainly
lot of
different
different
situation.
situations, and they require somewhat different.
Right. So everyone has to take an inventory of where they're at. Rule number 3, work-life balance is really answering a series of questions on a regular basis. And that's how you get to work-life balance, is you answer these core questions. Most of the time, people don't even know what these core questions are.
We might have to come back to that. That sounded a little confusing to me. Asking questions.
Asking questions of
Right,
yourself.
right.
Oh, I've got a whole list of questions.
Okay.
Achieving work-life balance is incremental. Minor changes have a cumulative effect. So there's small things that you need to do in order to get to work-life balance. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and say, wow, I had a 2 today and I have a 10 today because I did nothing.
Okay.
You have to take some kind of action. Number 5, there are only tips and techniques. There are no silver bullet answers.
Okay, so if somebody stands up and says, all you got to do is buy my book.
Buy my book, or call me to be a client. I would.
You have to have a little bit of incredulity to believe that.
Yeah, I probably should write a book about work-life balance. I have to also model the way for my career counseling clients too.
Right.
So they're often
That's an
out of
inspiration.
balance. Yes, they often keep me in check. I'm trying to model the way. I can't tell them these tips and strategies if I'm not doing them myself. So it works out well. I think the first thing I would stress is everyone must define what work-life balance means for them.
That's
the
actually
key.
my first question. What is it? So
What is
you've got
it?
different definitions.
I have
but
no idea what it is for you, Richard. I have no idea. I know what it's for me.
What is it in general? What does it mean?
I think work-life balance would be a state of peace and a centeredness where you know that you're operating at your maximum, both in your personal life, your professional life, and your play life. Those are the 3 things I like to focus on.
Okay, so it's
triple
not,
P.
It's not just cut and dry. On this hand, we have work, 9 to 5, whatever it is, 8 to 8, whatever it is. And on the other hand, we have play, which is a time thing. It sounds like you're saying this is something that exists all the time together, and we should have some kind of a balance right now.
Everything is interrelated. Now, you can try to compartmentalize these things, but in the internet age, we're doing more work at home. We're doing more work at night. We're taking work home at night. We're getting on the internet after the kids go down, and we're working on the internet for 2 or 3 hours after the kids go down.
Okay, if we have our BlackBerries, we're never...
We have our BlackBerries. We're typically working a half day on Saturday or half day on Sunday. We're constantly checking our email, and we're not very good at setting boundaries and setting limits.
So that's important.
So things are morphing in, and as work continues to creep into the personal life, we're trying to maintain the personal life. The one thing we're not doing very well at all is maintaining the play life. I often ask my clients, what did you do for fun this weekend? And they look at me like I've got 2 heads.
You're kidding.
They
Oh, I guess I
well,
shouldn't
let me
say
think
that.
about it. I don't know.
Well, I
it was
cleaned the
okay.
yard for 4 to,
That can be relaxing. One of the things that I enjoy doing is mowing the lawn. I mean, I wouldn't consider that play. I would consider that personal life and maintaining my house.
Okay.
But that's a downtime for me where I can really collect my thoughts.
Right. So it's not just that I'm not doing anything useful, it's that I'm enjoying it.
Right. So when we're looking at work-life balance, the first thing you have to do is do some self-reflection. You are on this treadmill, or I call it a merry-go-round. I'm off the merry-go-round, fortunately. The whole world is on this merry-go-round, and it's spinning faster and faster and faster than it was 20 years ago. You've got to get off the merry-go-round, interrupt your life, and take a day or 2 and say, you know what, for this weekend we're not going to do anything. But what we're going to do is we're going to chart our goals for 2008 in terms of personal, professional, and play. So you can modify your goals, but if you don't have any goals, you're like a ship without a rudder.
So you would say that's step 1.
That's step 1. You've got to step back and do some self-assessment, self-reflection on what is really important. Because oftentimes we're doing things that are not particularly important, and then we realize, gosh, why am I spending all this time in a, I don't want to beat up on the PTA, but I was in the PTA. And I thought, well, that would be a good thing for me to do for my daughter.
Satisfying, rewarding.
Satisfying, rewarding. But I realized it wasn't giving me 5 more minutes with my daughter. And she didn't know I was in the PTA, and she doesn't really care that I'm in the PTA. Right. So I did an evaluation and decided that that was not the best use of my time. Oftentimes I'm thinking to myself, will this decision give me 5 more minutes with Rachel or not? We're often asked to do things, especially community service things, and we really have to decide, is my plate really full in terms of that area? One of my pieces of advice is, for some people, they really should get involved in community service, and I'm going to shoot myself right now by saying there's some people that should quit community service. They're doing too many things. You should pick maybe 1 or 2 organizations that are close to your heart. One of my organizations is summitforsomeone.org. I'm trying to raise money for inner city kids for a week-long backpacking program. And I've raised almost $4,000. The nice thing about it is I can do it whenever I want to. So there's no committee meetings, there's no subcommittee meetings. I'm just out there to raise the money, and I do it on a regular basis, but it doesn't impact my life. I'm not in a meeting at 7 o'clock at night or on the weekends or something like that. Right. So you have to think about all the things that you're doing in your life, in your work life, your professional life, and your play life. You have to really write down an inventory. That's the first thing you do.
Because otherwise, maybe from what you're saying, you wouldn't know that you were playing. I mean, you wouldn't be playing. You might just be going through the motions or doing something that really is not fulfilling. It's like TV, you said, I think before we started, stop watching so much TV. And for me, that's a good example, because sometimes I'll watch something and afterwards I'll feel worse than when I started.
TV really creates depression. It is not something that brings families together. Now, I'm not going to stop watching the Super Bowl. Okay.
Especially this last one was very good.
That's right. But you really have to set limits on TV and the internet, and we don't do a very good job of that.
I think a lot of people, I'm sorry to interrupt,
that's
I just
okay.
had to go back, that a lot of people were much happier after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to be with a number of people during the Super Bowl, and there was a festive atmosphere. But if you're watching 2 or 3 hours of TV a night, you're really not having family time.
Just by habit.
Just by habit. Certainly there's some shows that you want to watch, but I think instead of watching TV, if you turned it off and you played a board game with your family, that would create a lot of new memories. Board games, game night, usually bring people together.
I like that. I guess if I imagined, and you used the word memories at one point, if I looked back on my life, I probably would not think to say, I remember when we used to watch TV. Or you don't really hear that from people. Remember when we used to watch, although maybe a romantic thing about Gunsmoke or something.
Well, an interesting thing happened this summer. There was a power outage in Bethlehem where I live. And there was very little that we could do. Couldn't watch TV, couldn't get on the internet. Right. You know what happened? Everyone came out of their houses and walked the streets of Delmar. People you'd never seen before. And so there was a lot to be said for that time when we didn't have technology. Right. So I'm not saying, we need to do away with the internet. We need to be disciplined and restrictive of the internet, because getting on the internet, or TV, and with the internet, we get on the internet, we're not on there for 5 minutes. We're on there for 15, 20,
and we don't even know why we're there sometimes.
And, and then we're surfing, and then we're off distracting. Before you know it, 45 minutes is gone, and you haven't had that time to read that book to your daughter. I personally don't have the internet at home. I'm on the internet 8 hours a day in my office. I don't feel like I need to come home and be on the internet, and I don't have it on the weekends. So it's really healthy for me to log off and disconnect. I also don't have cable. I do have a mountain bike. I have cross-country skis, downhill skis, snowshoes, hiking equipment. We have a soccer field in the backyard. So we do a lot of active things, and those tend to be the things that we record on the video camera. Right. So self-assessment is the first step. Exploration is the next stage. So when you're sitting down and you're inventorying the things that you're doing, you have to think about, where am I going? Where do I really want to go in 2008? And really start to set goals for yourself. Then the next...
So that would be like, you know what you want, and that was the first first step. And now we're planning out how to reach them. Is that
The first step is, yes, defining what you're interested in, but
okay,
inventorying...
your interests. Okay.
Yes, your interests. And then, but taking an inventory of all the things you're doing. I mean, literally writing down where you're spending your time.
Okay, that's just like budgeting.
It's budgeting. You only have so many hours in the day, and you have to divide them up between personal, professional, and play. And play has gotten completely squeezed out, and we don't give ourselves permission to play. I know there was a time where all of my friends had bicycles, and we used to ride bikes. Well, if you ask the average person, when was the last time you were on a bike, they'd probably say a year or two.
Right.
And so it's not a lot to ask to get on the bike, take a 20-minute bike ride with your family, and create some memories. So that's,
right.
that's an example. So where are you going? So you have to ask yourself, how will I know if 2008 was a total success? In terms of my personal life, my professional life, and my play life. That's a hard question to answer.
I guess the hard part there is that people have to put those the last two of the three items in the equation, because people
Yes.
will often say, where do you want to be in 5 years, or
Right.
what do you want to do professionally?
Right.
But not where do you want to be with your family, or
Right.
how do you want to feel personally? What would
Yeah.
you enjoy doing in the next year?
That's exactly right. Let's look at the personal. How would you know if your personal life was a total success? So if you broke that down into subsections, like family, for example, how will you know if your family was a total success in 2008? You could say something like, we took that vacation to Acadia National Park that we've been talking about for 5 years.
And we've been talking about nothing else since.
Right. Or you could say, last year we took 2 weeks vacation, this year we're going to take 4 weeks vacation.
Okay.
In the summertime, we're going to take every Friday off, and we're going to go for long weekends up to the Adirondacks. We're going to ride our bikes every Saturday morning for an hour. You're really living a deliberate life. Now, certainly life can happen and unfold, and life throws us lots of surprises, and we have to be open to those types of things. But really being deliberate can allow us to be disciplined and take advantage of all the things that life has to offer, so that we don't get to New Year's Eve and go, gosh, another year goes by and we didn't go on that trip.
We said we would.
We said we would, and then we didn't come up with a plan, which is the next part, is the implementation, is how do you get there.
I guess you want to say dates and things like that. I mean, if you're going to say, we're going to go on vacation, when?
Right.
Just like when your child tells you, I'm going to cut the grass, or I'm going to do this. When? Not, I'm sure you are someday.
Another way to look at it is, here's your weekend. You've got a lot of things to do during the weekend. You've got to mow the lawn, you've got to do the dishes, you've got to clean the toilets, you've got to do the food shopping, you've got to pay the bills, you've got to vacuum, you've got to do all these things. Why don't you do some things Friday night, take all day Saturday and make that your play day. Literally define, Saturday we will do nothing but play. And then Sunday, go to your house of worship or whatever you do in the morning, and then the rest of the day, you just do your activities. And that's how I've defined my life. So every weekend, my goal is to do one fun activity. So it's being very deliberate. So you should be saying to yourself, what one fun activity will I do this weekend? Could be going to a movie, having friends and family over. It doesn't have to be things that
Right.
I enjoy, like ice climbing, rock climbing,
Right.
mountaineering, downhill skiing, things like that. But again, it goes back to, how do you define whether this weekend was a total success?
And I guess you have to do something and find some joy in it before you even know. I wonder if some people don't even know what they like because they haven't done it for so long.
And it's also giving ourselves permission. I don't care if it's cross-stitch, gardening, quilting, motorcycles, swimming. You've got to have a life outside of work. And you know what? You're going to be a better parent, and you're going to be a better worker on Monday morning. When you step back, you're going to come back refreshed, spiritually, mentally, physically. So this is really about putting yourself first, which we oftentimes don't do.
Okay, so let's sum up where we are. And is there another step?
There's another step.
Okay.
So there's implementation. How do I get there?
Okay.
That's where you want to list all the things that you want to do, rank them,
Okay.
prioritize them, and then you want to make some decisions about them and come up with an action plan. So you've got to decide, we really want to put that addition on the house. After some discussion, you realize that's a 2009 goal. It's something we really want to do, but we're going to table it for next year. That's fine. At least you know that that's something you're going to do 2 to 3 years.
Right.
If 2009 comes and you say, you know, we've saved half the money, but we really need to do it in 2010, that's fine. You can take the goals that you've set for yourself in 2008 and put them in 2009. The 2007 goals I had 10 goals, I only did 6.
At least you saved half the money.
Yeah,
that was
that's right. So I only did 6 of the 10 goals. The other 4 goals, some of them which I just threw out completely. I didn't want to do them in 2008, and the other 2 I put on into the 2008 goals.
Okay.
And then the last step is evaluation. I mean, what went right, what went wrong? So coming up with an action plan, doing micro steps. I mean, for example, there are certain things that I want to accomplish this month. I want to do this much rock climbing, I want to do this much ice climbing, I want to spend this much amount of time with Rachel, I want to spend this much amount of time with work. And I'm very deliberate about it. So at the end of the month, I look back on my calendar and say, wow, that was a great month. But it's because I was deliberate about my time. Sometimes on a Saturday, I just mark off the entire day and I don't do anything and just let it happen.
Sounds good.
I schedule my unscheduled time.
Now, before we get into tips, because
Yes.
you're probably going there, I don't know, would that be the next thing, or is there something?
I'm sure the viewers want tips.
Okay. I just want to go, before we get to that, and I know we want to do that, but I just have this feeling that some people don't even know if they're really stressed out or not. How do you know? How do you know if you have a good balance? Because I think some people are so busy, they haven't even thought about it.
Well, if they're so busy that they don't know where their life is going personally, professionally, and play, they're probably out of balance. If you ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say how balanced you are? That would be an indicator to me. But again, it's this merry-go-round that we're on. We're spinning so fast. We're working so hard, so many hours, we're really just getting through each day, and we really don't have a long-term vision. And then you know what happens? Somebody's sister in the family gets cancer. And then you start thinking about what the real meaning of life, or somebody dies, or somebody's child dies, or your dog dies. And then you start thinking, your husband gets cancer, and you start thinking about what's really important in life.
You've been working all this time for the future, and suddenly the future is past.
You have 2 people. They've both worked for the state of New York. They decide that they're going to retire early at 55. One of them drops dead at 57. And you start to think, wow, that person worked their entire life so they could have that day when they could retire to do what they really wanted to do. Now they're dropped dead at 57.
So this is really not work-life balance if you divide your life up into 2 parts. The bad part, which we're going to live until we can't work anymore, and then the good part, when the sun shines and the sunsets are pink and everything is wonderful.
I'm wicked happy because every day I tell myself, you're wicked happy.
There you go. What is that?
The secret is that you go back and you give thanks for all the things you have. And so you don't focus on scarcity or what you lack. You focus on the things that I have. I have a house. I have a car. I have a daughter. I've got a great business. I have more clients. I have a backpack.
And you like to hike.
And I like to hike. I like mountain biking. The best things in life are usually not things. They're relationships and experiences that you can enjoy with people that you love. And also making a difference in the lives of people. And that's why community service can be so meaningful. If you don't have a job that's not meaningful, that's another way to give back.
So let me try this out. You get to 65, a time when most people are thinking, I'm going to retire, or maybe I'm going to at least figure out when I'm going to retire. But you're not saying, I'm going to finally do something. You're saying, gee, I don't know. Do I really want to stop doing all these wonderful things I've been doing? I've enjoyed my 65 years.
Well, I know that when I'm 65, I'm not going to retire because I'm already retired, because I'm doing something that I love. 5 days a week now, I do careers in transition. When I'm 65, I'm going to do it 3 days a week. I'm not going to change anything, because what I'm doing right now I feel passionate about.
Yeah.
When you're doing something you feel passionate about, you don't really want to retire. You're just doing. For me, there's no break between Monday through Sunday, even though I put in a break. I don't career counsel on the weekends. That would just create burnout.
Now let me try this question, which is probably harsher than I want to do it.
Throw it out there. I'm ready for it.
Do you really think everybody can do that? I mean, there's so many jobs that need to be done.
Well, there's 3 types of jobs. There's the ideal job, the backup job, and the safety job. And some people are just in a safety mode. They're going through the motions each day. You've got to interrupt that cycle and say, you know what? I believe in myself enough that I'm going to change the way things are. Otherwise, you're just going through the motions, and there's really no hope. You're going down a road.
There's
all kinds of things that you could.
Education. There's
all kinds of things that you could do. I mean, if you were lonely, for example, get involved in some community service. Get out of your house. If you come home from work, and you're a single person, you're coming home from work, and you're coming home and you're having a glass of wine and watching all TV all night, there is somebody out there, a nonprofit, community service organization that really could use you. You don't have to do it 5 nights a week.
Right.
You don't have to do it every weekend, maybe every other weekend.
Okay.
But I think you will find your happiness when you start to relieve other people's suffering. Could be even as small as listening. You don't have to raise $10 million. But going out and use your gifts, what will happen from that is you'll find that you really have a meaningful life, that you did make a difference.
So when you said you're wickedly happy,
I'm wicked happy.
It's a challenge to people to say, can I really say that I'm really happy? And if not, maybe I should consider that there's something I could do to get better.
Well, there's a couple things that come to mind. One is I'm constantly giving gratitude, constantly saying thanks for all the things I have. I live in America. I live in Albany, New York. It's a great part of the country. I've got several mountain ranges that I can hike. I've got more mountains here than I can climb for the rest of my life. I've got a beautiful daughter. But when we focus on the things that we lack, that's when it starts to get, well, you know, my house isn't as big as this house over here. I drive a Ford. I don't drive a BMW. Then you start to run into problems.
Or I drive a BMW. I don't have a Ferrari.
There's always that, you know, one-upmanship kind of thing. The other thing is I lie to myself all the time. If I'm not wicked happy, I just say that I'm wicked happy. And when I change my thought process from negative to positive, all these positive things happen.
So if you act that way, maybe you'll become that way.
You need to see the change that you want in the world. You need to be that change. So I just walk around and I'm super positive. And as a result, I usually attract more clients, more positive people, more positive experiences. I can also look at the experiences that I've had in my life more positively. So when something goes wrong, like you have an ice storm, someone would say, oh, it's going to take me more time to get to work, and it's cold outside. I look at it as, wow, there's a fresh sheet of ice in the Adirondacks. I can't wait to go to it this weekend. So it's all in how you look at things. You need to change from the negative attitude of scarcity to an abundance mentality and be positive.
So anybody, everybody can do something.
It all starts up here. It all starts with a thought.
I guess
thoughts become things.
We've started. What about those tips?
Tips. I got lots of tips. First of all, a way to frame work-life balance, another tip is write down your goals in those 3 areas, personal, professional, and play, but also in these areas: faith, family, friends, finances, fitness, fun, future career development, and further learning. So again, you need to sit down and say, how will I know if I was financially successful in 2008? How will I know if in 2008 it was a total success in terms of my fitness? And write down what that would look like. There's going to be a gap between where you are and where you want to be. And so during the year, your job incrementally is to close that gap.
Right.
So that's a way to frame things. So I'm constantly thinking about, at the end of the year, I want to have this amount of income, I want to have this amount saved, I want to have this amount in my IRA, I want to have this amount in my cash reserves. And then on a weekly and monthly basis, I'm doing small incremental things in order to get there.
So you've set goals in many categories.
Many categories.
And so those kind of cover what you need.
Yes.
Not just what you need in terms of
if I do
food, but everything.
That's right. If I do these 8, I call them the 8 Fs, faith, family, friends, finances, fitness, fun, future career development, further learning. If I do all 8 of those things, I'll be at peace. Because I know that those are the most important aspects of my life. Somebody could, in terms of future career development, somebody could be enormously successful in their career, and they're bankrupt. Or they're 55 years old and they have $2,000 in an IRA.
Now, that just brings me to a question. We'll never cover all your tips. I guess we
That's
just
okay.
have to
We can
give
have
that
another
up.
show.
Okay. But somebody could be very successful, but they're so driven that they don't recognize what's enough. And, I guess
Right.
that goes back to what you said. You have to be thankful.
You have to be
also.
thankful, and you have to personally write down what your definition of success. Externally, success in our culture is money, prestige, status, and toys. So if you've got a second home on Lake George, and that's great. My definition of success is 8 weeks vacation. I took 8 weeks vacation last year. I took 9 this year. There's not too many people that can say that. That's my personal definition of success. My personal definition of success for me is I have no debt. I live a debt-free life.
But I know there's more to it than that.
So you have to decide what you would consider success to you.
And I know, your daughter is important.
My daughter's pretty important. She's my insurance policy. She's
So
going
all
to pick
these-
my nursing home.
Well, I
So
don't
I've got to, instead of coming home, I don't have the internet, but I could very easily come home, get on the internet, and not help her with her homework. It would be very easy, or I could plop myself in front of the TV.
And she might not mind. If
She's not going to mind, but that's not good daddy-daughter time.
Right.
So the 8 F's are good strategies.
Now we have time for a couple more.
Okay, all right, good. Define the ideal. What would be the ideal situation in terms of those 8 F's for you? Really dream. I would challenge our viewers to really dare to dream. If you don't hit the dream, that's okay. The sin is when you don't dream. When you're just going through all the motions of the day, and the dream died, back in your, you had a dream in your 20s and 30s, and then you had kids, and then all of a sudden you're 47 and you have no dreams anymore. The dreams are the dreams that you have for your children.
Right.
Assess the real. Where am I now? Close the gap. Evaluate your plans. Write down your goals in terms of highest priority, high priority, and low priority.
And that would probably be based on, I guess, what parts are missing in your life.
What parts are missing?
You could be the most successful in one thing, and that wouldn't make up for something that you're lacking.
That's exactly right. You could be successful in your career, you could be successful in your finances, you could be in fantastic shape, but you haven't called any of your friends in 3 months. Make a goal for yourself that you're going to call 2 friends every weekend. I do. I have it on my speed dial, and I go through a list, and I'm like, I called that person the week before, and so I'll call this person this week. And I always take the burden of responsibility. So I know that friends aspect of my life is getting taken care of. Schedule dinner time every week. We eat dinner at 6 o'clock every night. So if the phone rings, let it go. It's not a part of our family. In terms of email, the phone, getting back to the phone, I don't answer the phone in the car. I let it go to voicemail.
The police would like that too, and so would
Yeah,
some
well,
of the other drivers.
I've got the headset on, but you're not, one, you're not giving the person your full attention, and 2, unless it's an emergency, the nurse calls me from Rachel's school, it can probably wait. The other thing is when it goes to voicemail, you can pick up the voicemail and then think about how you want to respond to that person. It doesn't have to be knee-jerk.
It's true. If you're also looking at your phone to see who's calling, that's even more dangerous.
Yes, you've got to be careful about that. Let go of people and things that hold you back. In 2008, you have to decide what activities, people, situations, events, relationships are holding me back from full life. Or what are the things that are adding to my life? What are the things that are taking away from my life? I would write your personal vision and mission statement. We do it for our companies, strategic plans. Our companies have strategic missions. We don't. We don't have
So
it.
a lot of what you're saying is you need to use your thinking and at least, maybe verbalize isn't the right word, but make it concrete. Make it so it's something that you could say that if somebody said, what do you want in these areas, you wouldn't have to go, I don't know. You would say, I want this,
Right.
that, and the other, and you already know what it was.
You have to, again, live a deliberate life. You certainly want to be open to all the many possibilities that happen, but you also want to go out and grab life by the horns and ride it and take advantage of all the things that life has. What are your 2008 travel goals? What 5 places do you want to go to in the next 10 years? Write them down. Maybe one of them is Alaska. Maybe it costs a lot of money to go to Alaska and you don't have it right now. But
So now you have
could
to save.
could you be saving a little bit along the way? So you don't get to 55 and say, gosh, we wish I should have taken that Alaskan trip and now I don't have my health with me, and you've really defined your goals. Stay in, go out. That's another tip. Sometimes you just want to stay at home and nest, and that's a good thing. Don't stay at home every weekend. Don't go out every weekend either. So have a balance between those two things. Exercise for 20 minutes every day. I like to exercise in the morning. I get up at 5, I exercise for a half an hour. I either run, bike or go for a walk. The phone isn't ringing. I have no clients calling me. There's no internet. It's my time in the morning to center myself for what can be a chaotic day. Keep a journal.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Journaling is an outstanding way to record your life. Also, it's a place to put your anger and your feelings when you're having a bad day.
You better hide that.
You can hide it. You can, you know, you can burn it when you're done. But journal writing, what I do is I have a very small journal. I write 2 pages in it. It's about that big.
Okay, so it's not a huge thing.
No, it's not a huge thing, and it's riddled with misspellings. And I don't, you know, and okay. I can write I write just 2 pages. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes. I do it every morning. Take my shower after I've gone for my exercise. I come in, I get dressed, and I write in my journal. I write about what happened the previous day.
Uh-huh.
And then I put it in, and then I'm off to work.
And I guess some people might find a better time, maybe the last thing they do before they go to bed.
Go to bed. Maybe you're doing it at that quiet or most productive time of your day. You can have the flowery journals. You can have a full page. You can do whatever works for you.
And what's the goal of it? So we know. I mean, if somebody's going to do it, they're going to say, "Well, why? What are you really getting out of that? What's it doing?"
Could be a couple things. One is, if life's worth living, it's really worth recording. Putting things down, your thoughts. I mean, if you go back into the history of things, Lewis and Clark kept a journal.
It's true.
Going across the country. Can you imagine if they had just said, "Well, I'll just remember that"?
Yeah, we saw a bunch of people of color, and we did this and that.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so fascinating to read their journals. It'll also keep you centered, because if let's say you're writing in the journal about having a bad week at work, and then you have another bad week at work, and then you have another bad week at work, that can be a trigger. That, you know, is this going to be a continuing trend? You could write some joys in there. One of the things that I do is I write these Post-it notes of funny things that Rachel has said, and I put it in the journal, and then I can go back and...
Now, do you go back?
Oh, absolutely. And they're hysterical.
And how do you do that all the time?
Oh, I do it all the time, or, you know, for a good laugh, you know, all these quotes that she said over the years, and those things get lost if you don't write them down. It's a centering tool. I mean, it keeps you centered on what's important. And you know, if you're angry, you can put your thoughts in there. If you have great joy, you can put your thoughts in there as well.
I kind of think that's a good place to end. I know we could go on for another 30 minutes with tips, but I like that. It's a good feeling.
I'll say one other thing.
Go ahead.
I hope you and the rest of our viewers have a totally successful 2008 in the way that they define work-life balance.
I want to thank you. That was very interesting, and I think that it means enough that people need to actually follow through with some of the things you said.
People really need to put their lives first, and when you put your life first, you'll put your family's life first, and you'll put your work life first. People have to take charge of their lives, go from passenger to driver. I hope they do that this year.
That sounds good. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And I want to thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you watch again next time, and have a great week. Take care.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.